This is Super Show. Today I'll be jumping on some barbed wire chairs. This is for juggalos and juggalettes. Do not try this at home, and I hope you like it. Whoop whoop. Fuck this shit. Whoop. Oh, shit! Oh my fucking god!
And welcome to another edition of the ArtCast. This is episode 3, and it's 4/20, 2020, April 20th, 2020, which is a holiday for those who partake in the cannabis. But if you do it on a regular basis, then is today really a holiday? Do you really need an excuse? It just makes it more fun to say, hey, it's 4/20, which means you have to smoke on 4/20 at 420 hours, 20 minutes, 20 seconds, 20 milliseconds, and also 1620 hours, 20 minutes, 20 seconds, 20 milliseconds. If you can keep track of all that and such. So, but no, 4/20. 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, people were like, "Hey, 4/20 is coming up, and it's gonna be 4/20/20." And it's going to be 4/20 all month anyway because it's April 20th or April 2020. So, as I said, if you already partake in it, then I guess it's still a novelty. You can have fun with it, whatever. I guess it's it's sad. I've been sad on 4/20. And not having any bud. It's like, oh man. And what you do, you're gonna go to a friend's house and hopefully they're partaking and stuff. So, but it's also a very marketable day for if you're an event promoter and concert promoter. It's a very, marketable and lucrative day for your business. This is a day where, and a weekend, depending on what day it falls on, but it's usually, you'll see a lot of festivals, a lot of bands playing, and so be like, it's 4/20 day, or it's a 4/20 festival, or it's the, find some way to market it to the marketing hippies and anybody who's just like, oh yeah, that's cool. So, cool to see like your favorite noodly jam band and get stoned off your ass, or perhaps a reggae outfit. The Flamingo Cantina downtown on 6 would definitely be having an all-day thing. I'm sure they'd have they'd have some kind of special, and a ton of bands down there, a ton of probably like reggae bands and stuff. So, but yeah, as I said, it's a different 4/20. Unless there's going to be some people doing like very limited gatherings, and they'll be in secret. Otherwise, a lot of people are just going to be at home on their couch alone, token up. But hey, happy 4/20, right? There's some might sit there and say, what's so fucking happy about it? But hey, if you have bud, and you're okay with your bills and whatever, finances, whatever, that's normally stressing you out. If you're okay for just for a while, and you have some bud to help you out with that if you're into that stuff, and cool. So, but gonna get a little bit into that. The 420. There's actually a little bit of a history to it. If you're wondering where 420 came from, and it's become like the time to do it, man, or the time and the clock, or the date to do it. There's a cannabis holiday and such. So, it's just funny to be like, it used to be fun to go to your friends, happy 420, and yesterday, the 19th. Was the 77th anniversary of Swiss scientist Albert Hofmann taking a bicycle ride home while he was tripping on 250 micrograms of a compound that gave LSD side effects that he experienced. So I'll get a little bit into that a bit. And that soundbite in the beginning, that's this kid on Facebook. He calls himself Superhuman. He spells human with 2 N's. And he's a fan. He does wrestling stunts in his backyard by himself. For a while, he was doing it with this other guy, this friend of his who wore a lucha mask. His friend Paul or whatever. But he mostly does these stunts by himself, and he'll announce it, and he'll dedicate it to the Juggalos, and then he'll jump into some type of hardcore wrestling gimmick, some deathmatch gimmick, a pile of barbed wire or a light tube thing or whatever, and you heard the soundbite. If you haven't seen him before, I have a link for his Facebook. You can go check him out. He's hilarious. Seems like a good kid too, and he's been booked on some wrestling shows. So, maybe I'll buy a shirt from him at some point. But a lot of people make fun of him in the comments, but whatever. He's doing what he's doing, and he's amusing a lot of people. So, thanks, Superhuman. Hope you don't mind me using that soundbite in the beginning of the show. I just thought it sounded really cool and stuff. So, also, I wanted to give a quick update on adding this podcast to other platforms. I'm using Podbean to record and edit the shows, so that's where the original files are residing. But also, I submitted the RSS feed to both iTunes and Google Play, so I'm just waiting for approval on both of those. And iTunes Radio, they have already approved it. So I have the link in the comments or in the show description here. You can check it out if you use that app. And also I make YouTube videos for the shows, and I created a playlist, so the link's also in the show description, so you can check that out as well. Been asked about getting a show on iTunes, so that's just waiting in the wings for that. So hopefully within the next day or so I'll get approved for both those platforms, and then I'll send out the links and such. So again, appreciate your support and people listening and checking it out, getting back into this whole podcasting and broadcasting thing and such. So All right, so let's get going here. We're going to go check some stuff out. Like as I was saying, yesterday, April 19th, was the 77th anniversary of Bicycle Day. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Bicycle Day, it happened on April 19th, 1943 in Basel, Switzerland. I hope I'm saying that right. But there's a Swiss scientist named Albert Hofmann. He had quite an involvement in psychedelics and the development of LSD. And on this day, he took a bicycle ride home from the laboratory that he was working at, and he had ingested 250 micrograms of a compound ergot fungus, and with that, he felt the effects of acid. He felt very disoriented on his bike ride home, and he experienced all the crazy wackiness, the beautiful effects of lysergic acid. And so there are people who this is another holiday that people celebrate if they can, if they're brave enough. They'll drop a couple of hits of acid or however much, and then right before they really feel the effects, they'll hop on a bicycle and just ride off somewhere. That I haven't tried before. I have not ridden a bicycle tripping on acid. Should I say this? I've driven a car while tripping on acid, which I don't recommend. It was, I actually did it twice, which was, I can't even believe I did it once, let alone twice. But again, I don't recommend that. So I would actually like to try the bicycle on acid. I'm sure I would in an area that I know would be, safe as can be, where you know that's like it's open area, flat enough where there's not going to be any kind of traffic or anybody or anybody walking around and such. But yeah, people even actually like go to this particular area in town in Switzerland to celebrate, and mimic this this activity that he did. But I have this article from Scientific American that I have a link for. I'll put in the link for the description in the show description here. But says here about Albert Hofmann. His contributions to psychedelic chemistry extended beyond LSD. In the 1950s, he analyzed psilocybe cubatus, a, quote, magic mushroom consumed by Indians in Mexico, and deduced that its primary active ingredient is psilocybin. Hofmann's research inspired other scientists around the world to investigate LSD, psilocybin, and psilocybin compounds, which psychiatrist Humphrey Osmond dubbed psychedelic, based on the Greek words for mind-revealing. And yeah, that's true. But like I said, the article, he recalls a few trips that he's taken and his take on how other scientists and people like Timothy Leary treated the use of it and such. So he was actually, he was very cautious and, responsible with it, and didn't, I think, really want people to freely take it. I think he wanted people to understand, that it's a very serious, thing to take. I said it's mind revealing. So it's like if you're into facing your own demons even further, basically looking yourself in the mirror and being like, oh, okay, this is what it is, this is what I'm about in this sense. It's something else if you haven't done it. But yeah, mind revealing, that's really the best way, I guess, to put it. But again, if you want to check out the rest of that article, it's called Tripping in LSD's Birthplace, a story for Bicycle Day. The article was written by John Horgan. It was published in 2014 when it was the first anniversary, and as I said, yesterday was the 77th anniversary. So definitely check that article out. It's really badass, a really cool history about psychedelics and such. So so as I said, today is 420, and when I first heard 420, I just heard about it from friends, and I really didn't understand the origin of it. It was just like, oh, that's the time of the day when you smoke weed, and you're just like, what? Like, I didn't know that there was a particular time of day that I thought it was just obviously whenever, but apparently there's this ritualistic thing, and then it became, and then it was like, well, the day, April 20th, like, it's, the first time I really saw it as like a marketable thing too was like when I worked for a concert promoter in Philly. I worked for Electric Factory Concerts, and that was like when I was heavily into my hippie music phase and getting the jam band. So of course they'd be like, hey, you design this poster, for this jam band festival thing coming up, or hey, we're booking this band. What do you think of these things? So that's when I really first also started seeing that 420 is like such a marketable thing, where it's like, hey, this is a way to get the hippies out if they're not already into couch, token up and all that jazz, and already just way lazy. But actually the first time I saw the history of 420 or read about it or saw mention of it was in High Times magazine. I was starting to pick up those issues when I was really getting into the culture, and I saw, I don't remember what the other parts of history I heard, but the real thing I heard was that it was these dudes in high school in California. And I read up a bit more here on it. And again, I'll have a link for this in the show description so you can read up more on the history and how it spread throughout the culture, the cannabis culture and pop culture and whatever. But yeah, these dudes in these dudes in San Rafael, California, in the early 70s, in 1971, I think. They call themselves the Waldos because they all hung out. They all met up at this particular wall at their high school, like outside, and 420 was something like that they came up with, or from what I've read here too, it said something that it was in connection with an abandoned cannabis crop that these guys were looking for. They had based on some treasure map that the grow and stuff, and so these students, high school students, these friends, they who called themselves the Waldos, they had this map and they were looking for the crop, and then they couldn't find the crop. The plan that they used for this endeavor was called 420 Louie or something. So they went along with that, and when the mission was not successful, then they decided to keep 420 as the number and just said, hey, this is the time we're gonna smoke and all this shit, and just kind of made it their fate, their little phrase. But like all these other things had been written about, like it was police code, for a weed bust or whatever, or it was it's Tita. Interesting enough, but this 420 thing, it's somehow it spread into the Grateful Dead community, and once it spread into the Dead community, then it just then those guys made it their own and took it to all the levels of like, yeah, we smoke it at this time when the clock says 420, or we smoke it on this date and we're gonna make it a holiday and all this shit, and so it's like I said, it's become like all these, like it's become marketable for festival and concert promoters, like they have that cannabis cup, testing out competing with what the best strain is. That's like something they would do on 420. Hempfest in Seattle was held on 420. I used to attend these smokeouts when I lived in Philly. That was organized by these dudes. They were lobbying for the legalization of weed, and not in Philly, but also of course they wanted it to be all over, but definitely like in Philly. So these guys I met and knew they would run these smokeouts, and it would be like on Independence Hall, like right in front of in the and where Constitution Center was and shit, and a large gathering because there's this like big lawn there, and everybody it's like a few minutes, a few minutes to 420. Everybody get your pipes out. Everyone's like packing their pipes and getting their joints out and their lighters, and then do a countdown. 3, 2, 1. It's 420. And we do a communal toke. Like everybody smoke at once on 4:20 p.m. at those smokeouts. Those are some really really cool times and stuff. And that was and eventually in Philly they decriminalized weed. I'm not sure how much further they've gone with it, but they went to a decriminalization where basically you get a citation, get it, instead of being processed for 30 days, in a clink and all that shit. So because in Philly you would really want to think that they're after some real other fucking crime instead of fucking potheads, murderers and all that shit and robberies and shit and stuff. But that was interesting. Like that 420, and of course if you try to get it on 420, the day itself, then that's a bonus, of course, also. So So, like I said, I will put this article, the link for that History 420. You want to check that out. See how further it's gone, more in detail. But like I said, High Times. That's definitely the first time I saw anything mentioned about it, and that made the most sense. But I still was like, wow, that's something how that spread. But there's this myth it started in California, so it somehow spread out. But like I said, once it got into the kind of the dead community, then there you go. took off to the races and stuff. So And one more thing I want to touch upon before we wrap up today's episode, which I appreciate you listening to again, the ArtCast. This is episode 3. And I've had friends listen to the first couple episodes, and they seem to enjoy it. So again, I appreciate your support and everything, and sharing the episode. And I've had an interest from some people who want to be guests on ArtCast. So once I figure out what we're going to do, that if it's going to be through if I'm going to record it through FaceTime or the Facebook video chat or through, I mean, I don't even know why I'm just saying video, but through phone. I know you can use the Facebook phone. So I don't know if I'm gonna use. I don't have Skype. I haven't used Skype in years. I don't really want to use Skype, but if I have to download Skype to speak with certain friends who use it, then c'est la vie. But I'm hoping that's not the case. But as I was saying, the last thing I wanted to get to is, earlier I mentioned, I posted something on my Facebook asking friends, like, is there anything you're missing out on due to the pandemic? Because, the things have been canceled or postponed, either till next year indefinitely. And I had some friends get back to me about it. One of my friends, he had a list of some shows, and I thought he had something for not a Yankees game, but maybe like the farm team. They're in Trent, New Jersey. I forget that team, but he may have had tickets already, I think, for these events. Now, I think, I don't know, can't remember if he said they were canceled, but, that's a really common thing. Another friend said karaoke, which, yeah, I miss that too. It's, everyone misses going out, to like bars and stuff, but like karaoke, yeah, I miss karaoke. I didn't really get to do enough of it before, and things got shut down and stuff. So, another friend of mine mentioned the Collective, and what the Collective is, it's wrestling related. It's mainly run or headed up by that I really love, called Game Changer Wrestling, GCW, out of New Jersey. Those guys are great, Brett and Danny. I love that promotion. I went up to New York almost a couple years ago to see when he did Joe Janela's Lost in New York. That was a really awesome weekend. I got to meet some wrestlers after the show and meet up with a couple. And that was a fun time. And so GCW, they had this thing called the Collective, and it's a whole group of independent wrestling promotions that they each run a show during WrestleMania week. They go to the WrestleMania host city, and they each have a show like every night, like leading up to WrestleMania, run on a Sunday night. So like between like Thursday and Saturday night, there's like shows being constantly run, and the event is called the Collective because it's a whole group of independent promotions working together, and it looks like a really awesome time. I was going to go back up to New York a year or so ago when WrestleMania was up there, and they were running shows all over North Jersey, and I didn't make it, unfortunately. But yeah, that's with wrestling, that's been a whole, that they followed suit with the sports and entertainment industries with not running shows, except for WWE. They, even without fans in the stands, they're still taping shows in either empty arenas or at their performance center in Orlando, where they do the NXT training and shows down there. So that's, as I said, like wrestling is mostly it's all on hold, except for WWE. Concert industry, I mean, I've read that it may not start up till next fall. Fall 2021, and even then, like at least 0.25% of the population is maybe willing to go back and gathering around other people at events like concerts or whatever performances, sports. But a majority of people don't want to do that until there's a vaccine available, and they've been vaccinated, and other people have been vaccinated. So, yeah, that's going to take a while. Concert industry, there had been discussion about sports wanting to start up in late summer. This week would be the start of both the NHL and the NBA playoffs. And now both those leagues are talking about maybe they would want to start up in July or August, if that's even possible. But it's going to be most likely with empty arenas. So, baseball, I haven't seen any other discussions, except, the one that's been discussed where they were going to move the league to either Arizona or Florida and play all the games there in empty stadiums, and the guys are going to be, to the hotel rooms, and, to get food delivered to them, whatever kind of thing, get anything they need delivered to them. But they won't be able to see their families or loved ones, whatever, for like 5 months. At this point, there's even discussion of you're gonna either have to refund season ticket holders partial or all of their money. Ticketmaster was under fire because they had some kind of language that they changed, or they changed their policy like practically overnight, so they would get away with not having to refund ticket holders money. I'm missing out on I haven't seen anything announced officially. I'm sure most likely it's postponed, but I haven't seen anything information about it yet. But I was going to see Primus at the end of May 29th. It was like a dream tour, I've always wanted Rush material because of their fandom and association with the band. And they were doing this tour called A Tribute to Kings, where they're going to perform the Farewell to Kings album along with other music they've done. And I've seen Les Claypool perform Animals, the whole album, with his band 20 years ago. And it was amazing. So this is a fucking dream tour. And now with all this, I haven't received any particular notice about it, but I'm assuming the worst, that it's going to be postponed, or the tour is going to be, if it can't, will it be canceled? Will they come back and do it? Me and my friend Brandy, we were going to go. We both loved. I was like, oh, it's going to be an amazing show. It's the first time I had bought tickets for something like that in a while. I was so excited because I thought, man, I need to wake up early. I need to get, in line online early so I can get, in access to the tickets. And I got one section I got was, I thought was just like, oh wow. Going down at the Moody Theater there on 2nd Street. I was like, oh man, it's gonna be so awesome. But and then when this all came up, I was being real optimistic. And then I started reading that Live Nation was postponing all the tours and such, and I went to the Facebook page and I hadn't seen anything, but I doubt there's going to be, that tour is going to be happening now. It would be in a little over a month, and I don't see, things improving enough. Although, I think Texas wants to be open by the beginning of May. Weeks, I'm not sure yet, but you know, there's a thing that Texas wants to be up and running like its other businesses by the beginning of May. So we'll see how that goes. Again, things are up in the air with how all this is going. No pun intended, seriously. But I don't know, we'll see. But oh man, I saw a couple mentions of this. Online funerals, like Facebook funerals, like video like my friend, I don't think he went to one. I think he knows somebody who went to one, and he was like, that's brutal. And then I was, who mentioned that they went, they like attended one or something too, and it was like man, like that's the way you can attend them for now, if because of how these things are going. That's just like, wow, that's like real sign of the times kind of shit. So that's interesting. But yeah, like I said, I've you know, I saw comments from other people or posts. I know other friends are missing out on, you know, on concert stuff because a lot of tours are postponed or canceled. Apparently, that stadium tour with Motley Crue and Def Leppard, Jet, I think that tour's still going on. They announced a date like last month, I think, for somewhere in Florida in July, I guess, or something, like in Tampa Bay or something. And I thought I saw an article where, yeah, they said apparently that tour is still going on, so that's going to be interesting. But if they're going to be starting it this summer, it would have been starting off, I don't know if it would have been starting off this early. I think it's a summer tour, so maybe it would have started in, I don't even know if it would be starting next month. Maybe, you know, maybe May or June. I mean, at least June it would start up, I would think. So I don't know if they see how things are going with that. So, but yeah, like I said, I have a friend back in Philly. His wedding is postponed. I think it was supposed to take place next month, and I don't know if it's postponed until like the fall or if they have a date. But that's another thing a lot of people are missing out on: weddings, graduations, proms. School is done. Although I thought I read somewhere that some schools want to start up like in a week or two. So who knows with that? You know, but, you know, I mean, that's also going to be up to the parents if they want their kids to go back to school or not, and to be in that environment with other kids. And, you know, if someone's had it or if someone may have, you know, who knows who. I don't know what's going on with the testing and the statistics and how that, you know, and how long these testing sites can stick around and how long they're funded to stick around for. So, yeah, it's you know, still a lot of questions with this pandemic. I'm not really like making like I'm not like taking anything seriously, but I still want to say, hey, happy 420 though. Just, you know, make the best of what you can for now. You know, me and my friends, we've had our freakouts about this whole thing. You know, I finally decided to do this show, kind of out of necessity, because I'm like boredom, and I'm like, I need to do something with my creative energy. I'm not feeling really artistic, you know, with painting or creating or, I did a little bit with music. I made some tracks on GarageBand. If you hear any of the music that I on here, that's music I've created. So I'm just trying to find other ways, and same like with this show. So, but I think on that note, I'm going to end today's edition of ArtCast. So thank you again for listening and for your support. And hopefully within the next few days, ArtCast will be available on both iTunes and Google Play. When I get those links, I will post them on Facebook and on my Podbean page, and anywhere else, like like YouTube. On YouTube, I'll have the links available. So I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'll have another episode. I don't know. Maybe by the end of the week. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna be doing. Maybe like by then I'll figure out how to have a guest on the show. I'll test runs with recording calls and editing them on here. If I have to get like another editing app for that or whatnot, or if I can maybe just do it maybe I could just throw it in GarageBand and edit it down. So, but again, thank you for listening and supporting ArtCast, and I will see you soon. Take care, folks.